Hi, this is Jim Bergman with a quick tip from Redfish Instruments. One of the most common questions we get, almost a weekly occurrence, is how do I measure amperage with an accessory amp clamp? Because there's a little bit of confusion because there's multiple types out there, and I just want to explain the difference between the two types. This clamp we sell with a Redfish meter is a millivolt per amp clamp. So when you clamp it on there, it's just a standard CT, and it's going to output 1 millivolt per amp that it measures. It also has on here a ×10 selector, and typically you use that ×10 selector when you're measuring anything below 40 amps. At that point there, it's going to increase the resolution. If we're going to measure higher amperages, then we put it on the 1 millivolt per amp. Now, if we contrast that with the AEMC clamp here, this one outputs 1 milliamp per amp. And it's a totally different way it connects to the meter. And we're going to go ahead, I'm going to make measurements with both and just show you how to connect them and how they work. All right, starting with the Redfish meter, we're going to go ahead and we're going to plug one of the leads into common, and we're going to plug the other one into voltage AC. So we want to make sure that we have the meter set to voltage AC, and we want the millivolt range selected. So you can see right now that it's reading 0.0 millivolts. And so we're all set to go. I'm going to go ahead and turn on this vacuum pump after we connect the clamp on here. And again, I have this time on the ×10 setting because we don't expect the vacuum pump to draw 40 amps. I'm going to go ahead and flip the switch on. And you can see that this is measuring 60.4 millivolts, or in this case, we say that's 6 amps because we have to divide it by 10. It's on the 10 times multiplier. So this is 6 amps AC. And that's how you'd measure amperage with it. As soon as we take that off there, your reading is going to go back to 0. And that's how simple it is. The key thing to remember is it's hooked to the voltage and common because this is a millivolt output clamp. The second clamp we're going to test is a milliamp per amp. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to switch this over to milliamps on the meter. And then we connect this to the common terminal again, but this time we're going to connect it to the microamp and milliamp port on the meter. Now, one important note is you don't ever want to put your voltage leads on these two ports or you're going to blow the fuse in your meter. This is only for measuring very small amperages, microamps and milliamps. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'll connect this clamp again onto the wire that we're going to measure current on here. And you'll notice this one doesn't have a ×10 selector switch. This is rated only for 150 amps. So it's a much lower scale. It won't read up in the 400 amp range, but it's going to give you higher accuracy. So we're going to go ahead and clamp that on there. And we'll make sure the wires are on there firm. I'm going to go ahead and turn the pump back on. And you can see that our amperage reading is around 6.2, 6.1 amps. And it displays again as milliamps, but it's 6.1, 6.2 amps. So the two clamps are very close to each other. One was about 6.0 and this one's about 6.1. So about 1/10 to 2/10 of an amp apart, which is well within the acceptable range for these types of clamps on there. But you can see it's very easy to hook up and get amperage readings on both. You just have to have your meter set up properly and you have to use the proper ports on the meter. There is no benefit to using one clamp or the other. It just comes down to preference or maybe even what you have on your truck. We highly recommend that you use the Redfish clamp, not only because we make it, but also because the odds of you making a mistake and blowing the fuse are much lower because you're going to use the same two ports, the common and voltage ports, all the time. The AEMC clamp is a very good clamp. A lot of people like it simply for a smaller form factor, but both will end up giving you the same results. This is Jim Bergman for Redfish Instruments. Thanks a lot for watching.